Joining me now is Shadow Foreign Secretary Dame Priti Patel. Dame Priti, lovely to see you this morning. Happy New Year to you. Perhaps you can answer a question that Darren Jones was strangely unable to. Do the Conservatives back what US President Donald Trump has done in Venezuela?
I've been very clear already that we are not shedding any tears whatsoever now that Maduro has gone. He was an oppressive tyrant, a terrible, terrible dictator that has done dreadful things to his people and country. And Camilla, I think the context of how America has got to this position is also important. And I don't even think our government has recognised that. You know, in terms of the drug trafficking, their own national security policy, America has been really, paving this course of action for some time, basically. Now, whether or not we agree or disagree with it, you're speaking to someone that when I was in government actually worked with America on stopping cocaine and illegal drugs from Latin America coming to our country. So, there'll be a lot of detail here, which I still don't think we fully know and understand. Lots of people are going on about the legals, but there'll be more information, I think, that will have to come out. What I think is a little bit alarming, to be really candid, is that the British government doesn't seem to know much about what has happened, and they clearly haven't put the calls in yet. So we'll be asking these questions of the government when Parliament returns tomorrow. And, I think this is a big moment, actually, for the UK-US relationship. It's apparently a special relationship. But again, we've not exactly been informed on much of the detail thus far.
OK, so I appreciate what you're saying about an absence of detail, and of course conversations need to take place. But on the basis of what we do know, and let's be honest, the Sunday papers are full of detail about Maduro's past, why this has happened, all of the economic problems that the Venezuelan people have been facing in recent years. We also know how the operation was executed. Yes, concerns have been raised about a potential breach of international law. But just to put exactly the same question to you that I put to Darren Jones that he couldn't answer, do you support what the US president has done, yes or no?
What happens when a seasoned political journalist sits across from the shadow foreign secretary and methodically dismantles the government's performance on the global stage? That's exactly what unfolded on GB News, where Camilla Tominey pressed hard and Dame Priti Patel's responses painted a deeply troubling picture of silence, disarray, and a striking lack of preparedness. This wasn't a routine political exchange. It felt like a precise dissection of weakness, exposing cracks that raise serious questions about Britain's position in international affairs. The implications for Keir Starmer's leadership came into sharper focus with every moment, revealing a narrative that many will find difficult to ignore. Before we get into the full breakdown, a quick note: if this analysis is giving you clarity, consider subscribing. Most viewers watch without doing so, and a single click helps keep this kind of focused Westminster coverage coming. If you're already subscribed, you know the value. Now let's return to the heart of the expose.
We support the fact that Maduro has now gone. His regime was awful, so we support
Trump has done it.
Well, that's, to be quite frank, as I've said already, I think that was on the cards from the action that America has been undertaking in recent months. So, we are pleased that he is no longer there. We are not losing any tears or sleep over this at all. What I think is important, Camilla, is what next? This is the question. We've just seen an audacious military operation, which was executed with great precision, and America, clearly, they're very proud of that. But it's about what comes next, and that's the political questioning that is required about whether or not Venezuela will now move on that pathway of democracy, freedom, and also good governance. It's a deeply corrosive country with corruption at every single level there. And even a VP who's just been sworn in to become president, there are sanctions against her in Europe and with the American administration. So this is not going to be a walk in the park. And I think we all have to go in with our eyes wide open about the next steps and what this means. And also there are British nationals that live in Venezuela too. So we want to ensure that obviously the people of Venezuela, they get their, not just say their freedoms, but they are put on the path to good governance and freedom in the right way.
What happens when a seasoned political journalist sits across from the shadow foreign secretary and methodically dismantles the government's performance on the global stage? That's exactly what unfolded on GB News, where Camilla Tominey pressed hard and Dame Priti Patel's responses painted a deeply troubling picture of silence, disarray, and a striking lack of preparedness. This wasn't a routine political exchange. It felt like a precise dissection of weakness, exposing cracks that raise serious questions about Britain's position in international affairs. The implications for Keir Starmer's leadership came into sharper focus with every moment, revealing a narrative that many will find difficult to ignore. Before we get into the full breakdown, a quick note: if this analysis is giving you clarity, consider subscribing. Most viewers watch without doing so, and a single click helps keep this kind of focused Westminster coverage coming. If you're already subscribed, you know the value. Now let's return to the heart of the expose.
Events in Iran has been proportionate, in the sense that I pointed out to Darren Jones that post welcoming Alaa Abdel Fattah back into the country remains on his X feed, and yet he has posted nothing at all about Iranian protesters trying to overthrow the Ayatollah.
I did see that, Camilla, and I agree with you. I completely agree with you on that. I've written an article today making that exact point. When we see the protesters in Iran, they're dying for their freedom. And that might be a difficult concept for us to comprehend. They are fighting and dying for their freedom. Look at the tyrannical regime with the Ayatollahs in Tehran. And it is extraordinary with the level of protests that we've seen. We haven't seen protests of this nature, I think, since 2022, when we saw the most appalling brutality against women in particular for not fully covering their hair. So I think this is a really big moment, actually. It could be a crossroads. It could be a turning point. There are all sorts of issues going on in Iran, people protesting for different reasons. The big reasons right now are obviously the currency, the collapse of the economy. They've had a water crisis, but it's a terrorist regime. They sponsor proxies, terrorist proxies around the world. They're a country that hurts us. They're a threat to our national security. So how can we have a Prime Minister and a Labour government that sits in silence and sits on their hand at this particular moment? I just don't think that's acceptable.
I mentioned Mr. El Fattah there. Now, he was granted citizenship, I believe, on your watch as Home Secretary. Bearing in mind what we now know he has said about Zionists, about Jews, about our own police force, about white people, do you regret that decision?
Well, of course, absolutely. And my party's been clear that he should be stripped of his citizenship. It's important to understand the past concept. These cases did not come to me directly. There was a ruling, an ECHR ruling, I think it was actually before I became Home Secretary in 2019, that made citizenship cases of his particular nature and similar cases where citizenship was granted through the mother. It did not go through. They would not need to go through what is the good life or good character test. That has to change. I think it speaks to the big fundamental changes my party is putting forward now, such as leaving the ECHR, which means that cases like